Go ahead and start recording. All right, so we still have people trickling in, which is just fine. So, like I was saying, welcome everyone. We have a lot of exciting things that we're going to be doing today. So without further ado, let's jump into the agenda. And before we do that, we are going to introduce ourselves in the chat. So please go ahead and share your name, position, organization, and email, because I know we have a lot of individuals here today who are joining our meeting for the first time and presenting and may need to leave soon. So I will give everyone a second to do that. Okay. Great. Thank you everyone for adding these in. Hello, Max and Gabby and Julie and Edith and Danae and Ellison and Brett and Sarah and Mark and Cecily and Tina. Nice to see all of you. And I will go ahead and add that to the chat. And then thank you to all of you who said if today was a color. I see green, gray, purple, burgundy, rainy blue. Makes sense. Aqua, green. I love it. We have all the colors of the, well, not all of them, but a lot of them. So thank you for sharing a nice, colorful day together. All right. So I'm just going to add that. Okay. Great. Okay. All right. Next, we have our agenda. So we have been meeting as a coalition for 12 months. This is our first anniversary meeting of the Clean Air Coalition, which we launched in December 2023. So thank you to all of you. We're going to show you a snapshot of where our fact sheets are right now, and then we have two presentations, one from Gabby and Brett and Mark from Antioch, and then we have Solomon, Sarah, and Max who will be presenting for the second presentation that we have. We'll have some time for member updates and then closing statements. So just want to bring everyone through our last Clean Air Coalition time together. So we have our launch. January, February, March, April, May. I forgot to take one in June, so July, August, September, October, November, and then that brings us to today, and we will definitely take our photo in a few minutes. So thank you. I just wanted to share all of these with you. All right, so then we have our fact sheets, which we are working on. Well, these are final drafts as of now. So our first one is protecting children from poor air quality. We will be sending these to you all to review. So something I'm wondering is what the best way to review these would be, aside from obviously sending them to everyone, but then would you prefer to give feedback via email or making comments somewhere? I want to know what would work for you all for this.
Ellie, what kind of feedback are you looking for? Content, design?
Yes, content and design. This is as far as our team is going to take it for now. Going to get feedback from you all, and that way in January, we can present the translated versions to you all as well. So we want to make sure the English versions are ready to go so that we can translate them and then start sharing them.
Hey everybody, I have a just an idea of what I think has worked in the past. We could, what if we shared it in the Google Docs or Google Drive, and then people can make comments, and that way people can see the other people's comments that were already there, and they don't have to re-comment, or they could say, yes, agree, or is this the kind of document that could be shared in a Google Drive and then people could comment on different sections of it?
Not too much. But are you all comfortable making comments on Canva in that same way? No. Yeah, it's not very, intuitive to use like that. So, yes. We'll keep thinking of this. We can add it to Google, like to Google Drive, but it would be added as a picture or PDF, so then you couldn't highlight individual parts. But yes, Julie?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that if you put it as a PDF in Google Drive, then we can at least make notes or comments on it.
Oh, okay.
And that might be the best way to do it, especially, so we can try it. I feel like that would be easier than you having to compile all of our comments and all of us to make 27 of the same comments or what have you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That sounds good. All right, and then this is our second one. So we're going to call this series the Breathe Easy series. It's going to be presented by the East Bay Clean Air Coalition. So we had I don't know why it's doing this. Yeah, we just showed you two. Sorry about that. Okay, so without further ado, thank you to everyone for coming today, for coming throughout the last year. It's been really exciting working on the Clean Air Coalition, and I'm excited to just present our speakers. So next we are going to have a presentation about clean technology and carbon capture innovation in Antioch. This will be featuring Gabby and Brett. Is Brett here? Okay, there we go. Okay, cool. From the City of Antioch's Economic Development Office, and then Mark from Airmine, direct air capture startup that they are working with. In the meantime, I've stopped screen sharing, so can we take our picture, please? And then Gabby and Brett and Mark, you guys can get ready to pull up your presentation too. Okay. Yes, thank you. We'll give everyone a second to turn their cameras on. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, one more. 1, 2, 3. Thanks, everyone. Okay, Gabby and Brett, the floor is yours.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. We're trying to kind of be efficient and fit 2 presentations into 1 presentation. So can you all see this? Yep. Okay, great. So
can you hear me okay? I want to test our mics too. Okay, great.
Awesome. So first, Brett and we're from the city's economic development department, and we'll be starting off by talking about clean tech as kind of a regional green job strategy. And then we're going to pass the mic over to Mark from Airmine, who will share his screen and do his presentation on carbon capture and how that kind of fits in. Okay.
So we are the Economic Development Department of the City of Antioch. We are working off 9 initiatives to really focus on jobs in our city as well as Eastern Contra Costa. But this is just one of them that we're kind of going over, which is really about connecting an industry to Antioch with the workforce, which is really technically savvy. Essentially, by us bringing jobs back, we have a number of benefits, but one of them mainly is to pay for the services that the citizens of Antioch desperately deserve. Next slide, please. This is our small but mighty team, our director, Kwame Reed, myself. I'll be experiencing my second year at the city in February. Very happy with that. Gabby works hand in hand with me, does not work for the Economic Development Department, but is part of a fellowship that is employed by the federal government that is to bring federal funding to the area and really work on bringing jobs and lifting up communities such as the Antioch area. Next slide, please. So just quick things to think about when you talk about Antioch, probably the second largest city in all of Contra Costa. Most of the people who are there are adults. They're educated, going from an associate's degree all the way to a doctorate degree. 9 out of 10 people work. Of the people who are working, the main places they leave the city to go work in are healthcare and research science. So when you're talking about the Berkeley Labs, Lawrence Livermore, Sandia, SLAC, the people who work locally are either working in retail jobs or they're working for the school district. And as you can see, people are making about 100K, and something to think about. But I'll cross-reference that with our next slide. So if you look at it, large majority of the people who are here are homeowners. They have concentrated their wealth. If you look at it, these home prices are selling around at 600K, which is for some people, that's like really expensive. But when you compare it to a Berkeley, a San Francisco, or a San Jose, this is the last affordable area in all of the Bay Area. And then when you look at the diversity, this is probably the last Black and brown middle class in all of the Bay Area. Next slide, please.
So that kind of brings us to what our department kind of sees as its problem statement, which is that, as Brett mentioned, 94% of people are employed, but 90% of those people are working outside of Antioch. And so I'm sure for folks that live there, you're very familiar with this really bad commute mostly on Highway 4. It can be up to 3 hours. And this is a major source of discontent for residents. And it has a major ripple effect that I think does really include air quality. So economically speaking, folks are bringing their talent and creativity to other places, and Antioch is not getting the benefits of that brain power. There's also a lot less local spending because people are buying their lunch at work somewhere else, and our small businesses really suffer because of that. There's also studies shown that stress and burnout of the commute is bad for productivity and creativity as well. Environmentally speaking, transportation is the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions for Antioch, and that's pretty unsurprising since folks are driving alone in their cars to work for the most part. That has air quality impacts, noise and light pollution impacts, and that's especially concentrated around the highway, which is in underinvested parts of the city. And then communally speaking, when people are on the road for so long every day, they're not getting as much time with their family and friends. They're not going to the city council meetings. They're not going to the soccer games and all of these other places that you can build a sense of civic engagement and a sense of place. So we really focus on trying to build local jobs as a way to reduce this commute and help kind of rebalance the economy in Antioch.
But there is hope. Contra Costa has a unique positioning. There is the Green Empowerment Zone, which essentially, if you can go back and think about 2020, when the fires were happening and the world was changing, we saw a lot of governments really sort of say, we're done with pollution and we're done with polluters as an economy in Contra Costa. And so it put together tax incentives and loan programs and training to really make it easy to transition to a green economy. So not only generating energy in a sustainable way, but also the other related industries. And so what that really does is not only does it give us these incentives, but it gives us a mandate. So we have backing from the Fed to the state to locally to really make this happen. And so that kind of brings it to where for the coalition we work with, we really have this ability to try to create an ecosystem for green technology, which I'll talk about in a second. So if you really think about Antioch, it does two things. It's in the center of all the most populated metropolitan areas in all of Northern California. But also, if you're trying to build an ecosystem, which I have a bit of a background in, if you were going to do some really high-level manufacturing like semiconductors and things like that, you'd want to go down to San Jose and learn that. But if you wanted to really understand environmental sort of rules and follow regulations, you need to go to Sacramento. Guess what? Antioch's the middle point for that. If you wanted to get millions to billions of dollars to build out your tech company in Palo Alto, and you wanted to get marketing support, and you wanted to get legal support out of San Francisco, but you also wanted to expand your business into Central California by using a port as well as tying into agriculture in these large cities, guess what? Antioch is also in the middle ground. So Antioch really is this crossroads that allows this ecosystem to be built because it's got access for everything. Another great match about it is when we look at clean technology, we take the assets that Antioch has. We have these two rivers that meet in front of us to create the delta, which also sends down a large amount of water to the rest of the state. We have some of the last heavy industrial zoning in all of the Bay Area. We're tied with only Hayward for that. We have, again, these regulations that make it easy. We have the access, and we have this really technically savvy workforce. But what we don't have is local jobs, and we don't have the type of jobs that are interesting to people who build advanced science. And so this is sort of a match made in heaven in that sense that we can bring those together and not only just start by building clean technology, but we can also make an entire cluster that encourages. And so what we're trying to do is just get people to start their companies here, and then they'll spread the word and more will come, which kind of brings us to our next idea. What we wanted to introduce to you and start an engagement process is a company we've been talking to for about a year called Airmine. What is impressive about them is that they have a diversity of industry experience. They're not only just scientists, they've worked in multiple different industries, so they think about things ahead of time. We also really like their transparent approach. They're very honest about the constraints, about what carbon capture can and can't do. They're very thoughtful about its effects, and they're also very clear about our concerns about pollution. And then finally, they want to walk hand in hand with us in terms of this community benefits, meaning we are trying to create local jobs, we're trying to hire locally, as well as we are trying to lift up this entire area and make sure that we are creating industry that doesn't pollute, but also can restore the earth. And so that's really interesting to us. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mark from Airmine and allow him to talk to you about Airmine. And if you have questions for us, we'll answer that after that. Thank you.
Thanks, Brett and Gabby, and thank you, everybody. I'm going to pull up my screen in just a moment. Let's see. Are you able to see my slides?
Yes.
Okay, let's see. So thanks so much for your time. I'll try to keep it brief because I know there's many items on the agenda, but really appreciate the opportunity to get to meet you all and share a little bit about what we're building. Airmine is a next generation direct air capture technology developer. And just to set the context, direct air capture is a technology that some are familiar with, some are not. It's a new concept where we've emitted so much carbon dioxide into the air that even if we were to stop emitting altogether, which is absolutely the top priority, that is the thing that we must do. Even when we get to that moment, the reality is we likely will need to remove some of that carbon dioxide in the decades to come, just because by that point, the climate effects may be quite severe. And for everybody to have a livable planet, we will probably need something like these removal technologies. And this concept is being discussed by many groups, government, just civilians, academics, but there's this growing consensus, I think, that there will be things like this needed, and it's important at least to be talking and starting to build early versions of this now so that if we need to turn it on, that it'll be there for our children and grandchildren at the time that they need it. And a little bit about Airmine. We're an early stage company. We're based in Berkeley, California. We are supported by the Department of Energy on some grants that are related to this technology. There's a photo of us in the upper right, so it's a really fun group. A lot of folks from UC Berkeley and younger engineers who are excited to work on climate projects, and also some folks with gray hair that are coming in and trying to do what they can to use industry connections to make these pilots go and be commercial. We raised about $7 million about 2.5 years ago. And one relevant point, I think, for folks who are following the direct air capture space is that last week we welcomed Jan Hoekveld, who until recently was the chief commercial officer at Climeworks, which is probably the biggest company in this space. He joined us because of the strength of the team and the technology, and he thinks we're taking the right approach. So we're happy to have him and anyone that you see on the screen who's working to make it happen. And as Brett alluded, we don't hide the fact that we come from industry. We're not trying to be all things to all people. We just understand that in order for these technologies to make a difference one day, we're going to need to bring together people who have experience building large projects, and that there's a commercial reality to that. And so my co-founder and I both come from industry. He and I both met at Honeywell about 15 years ago, I think. And then I went to BASF. When I was at Honeywell, I was working with him on projects that make solar cells more efficient and now are used to minimize the reflection off of solar cells to improve their efficiency. And then when I was at BASF, I developed products that are used to make the chips that connect the electricity to the battery and then the battery to the motor in electric vehicles. So we've been able to work in clean tech for a number of years. And we were looking at this problem of direct air capture and saw an opportunity to have that industrial perspective brought in to try and make projects that have a practical way of moving forward. And maybe why we're here. I love this slide because I think we saw, Brett and Gabby are just amazing folks. And I got to meet Brett by chance at an event, about a year ago, and was struck just by the vision, I think, that Brett and the team are bringing for how to bring companies that are small and working on clean technologies, just like he was describing, to Antioch, which has all of these resources, which I think often fly under the radar. I'm a technologist. I kind of work with my hands in the building on these technologies. And so we don't often get out and see kind of where are the places that people want to be building these technologies. And so we got to have a conversation over the past year, and there's just so many interesting potential alignments. But it's really important now for, at this early stage, before we've actually built anything, before we're even seriously planning on building anything, that we talk with the community and really get a sense of, is this something that's a good fit, not just for Brett and Gabby and myself, but for the people on this call and the folks that you know and that you care about. And so that's the approach we've been taking, try to talk early rather than late. Folks always ask, well, how does it work? What is the technology you're working on? Just at a really high level, the way that we have developed the technology is there's essentially a saltwater solution. So that salt uses food grade salts. If you're familiar with the concept of acids and bases from chemistry, it's a basic salt and saltwater solution. And it basically is pumped through what you would think of as like a cooling tower for industrial HVAC systems. So liquid is being pumped through this open system. It's kind of trickling down something we call packing material, and that's visible here on the left. It's basically just sheets of plastic that are designed to create surface area for the liquid droplets to stick to. And then as that liquid is dripping down, we have fans that blow air through that system, and the air comes in contact with those droplets, and the CO2 absorbs into the droplets, but the rest of the air passes through. And then we have a big filter on top that makes sure that no other droplets get removed by the fan. And so that then is a closed system where the CO2 is just absorbed, but the air is free to move along. And then after the CO2 goes into that liquid, it forms basically an insoluble salt. So like if you're trying to stir sugar or salt into water and it reaches that saturation point and you see the white crystals at the bottom that just won't swirl in, basically that's what happens to our system. You form that white powder at the bottom of the liquid, and that's the CO2-rich reacted product. And then we send it to a piece of equipment called a stripping column, where we use low temperature heat. So this could be industrial waste heat, it could be, which is widely available in different industries. You can even think of like data centers have a lot of waste heat. And you are able to then use that heat to release the carbon dioxide back out in a concentrated stream, and then you can do something with it. And I think in terms of what we do with it, that's a really big question. I'll be totally transparent that right now we're such a small company that we are mostly looking at just taking that CO2 and trying to sell it to users in the community who might use it for food and beverage or dry ice, or you can use it as a refrigerant. But in the long run, probably sequestering it underground is the direction that many people are aware of, that both carbon capture and direct air capture will probably need to go. I would say that is years in the future. The EPA and community groups and others are focused on that topic, At Airmine, we're just an early stage company trying to build the equipment that pulls it out of the air. And there are bigger questions to be said about where that CO2 goes that frankly are a few years ahead of where Airmine is at right now, although we're closely tracking these issues and trying to talk with folks to understand how we can be a responsible actor in that space. And then why we're really excited to talk and some of those potential alignments that I was mentioning with Antioch and Airmine is there is government funding available, both from the Department of Energy as well as the state of California. Just yesterday, I got to meet 2 state senators who were just learning about this topic for the first time and really interested in how they can get a more comprehensive understanding of it. And what is happening is that you could think of Airmine's technology as sort of about the size of a small shipping container right now. And in order to get along that next path to commercial viability, we have to build a slightly larger one. And so we're looking at, are there opportunities to tap into this government funding to build, maybe we have something that's a shipping container now, maybe you do something that's the size of like a really small office or like a small gas station, just like a few shipping containers, or maybe R&D on one shipping container. So this isn't like some massive industrial facility that we're talking about building. This is, think like industrial R&D, but we'd like to do it closer to regions like Antioch, where there is that industrial zoning and the options that we can think about for the future, if there is a fit to grow and scale in a place where it could make sense. And I'll just end on this slide again to say, a lot of people think that technology and innovation is about, just the science. It's really about people and relationships and how you meet people at random times and the opportunities that arise. And so just to say, I view this meeting as another one of those. I'm really happy to follow up with anybody after this call if you have questions, or if you have questions on this call, to do my best to answer them. But just really appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about what we're thinking about and how we can help contribute to the vision that Brett and Gabby have for Antioch and the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett, Gabby, and Mark. And I want to especially thank you for your attention to the time. I appreciate that. We have about 5 minutes for questions, and then we'll jump into our next presentation. So you can either ask your question out loud or add it to the chat. Does anyone want to kick us off?
Real quick question. Is that okay?
Yes.
Sorry for jumping in. I was trying to get my React hand, but I couldn't find it real quick, so I apologize about that. Mark, I'm just curious. Again, my ignorance is extremely high and my knowledge is extremely low as far as DAC and CCS and everything else. My understanding is you have a experimental, maybe I'm wrong, a facility. Is it in Berkeley or something? I'm not too sure. And my question would be, would there be a time when maybe myself, maybe some other people that are interested could visit, and we could just like look at the hardware and talk to people and see how it works?
I can't tell you how much I love that question. What I often find when we're talking about direct air capture is that I think there's an instinctive sort of like, sometimes there's a resistance, like, or is it even possible? Is this a good thing to be pursuing?
Well,
And what I love is having people come by and see it. And even more than seeing it, it's meeting the young engineers who are giving their time to work on this because they think it's a meaningful thing to do. And I've every meeting, we always host people who are interested. So please reach out to anybody who's on this call that would like to come by. Gabby and Brett have gotten multiple tours, but please come visit.
Thank you.
We have Solomon with a question, and then Tina, you can ask your question, and then also Mark, Gabby, and Brett, well, anyone presenting today. Everyone added their emails to the chat if you'd like to record them as like questions are asked and stuff like that. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Brett, I had a question for you. When you were sort of describing the opportunity versus the need, I was just wondering whether or not there are similar sort of cities like Antioch that have actually been able to overcome some of the challenges you talked about, and what their innovation or what their, I don't know, what their trick might be to be able to overcome some of those challenges in terms of employment, attracting industry, and so forth. That Antioch obviously is challenged with. So that's my question. Thank you.
Yeah, good to see you, Solomon. I hope you guys can hear me. I got moved out of my room. Government, we do many things at once. So yeah, some proxies to think about. Livermore, when I was a child, that was a BART station. Now it is the job center of the East Bay. And if you look at what they did is they invested in an economic development plan, they did placemaking, and they really built up, in addition to their housing, they built up commercial areas. And so that way, numerous jobs were just transferred over there in the last year. So something, I think Oakland just lost something like 6,000 jobs to Livermore, Dublin, Pleasanton area. Another great one is Fairfield. Most people, when I was a kid, you drove through Fairfield to get to Sacramento or go to something called the Woos corn maze. Don't ask. Some of us are a little old and we didn't have fun things like video games. So we go to corn mazes. But Fairfield, you may not know of, but it has a whole biotech hub that's done an amazing thing where they've worked and done this investment and really just kind of created a research park out there. Another proxy that's a little closer to home is Pittsburgh. Believe it or not, Pittsburgh already has two carbon capture businesses there. They've done a really good job of kind of using their waterfront and sort of done some placemaking and engagement to do that. And so we work hand in hand. One of my passions around this is to try to get myself, Pittsburgh, Oakley, and Brentwood to work hand in hand and really kind of make a regional approach to clean technology. And we think that will really help the county. So that's something that's happened locally where they've been able to bring experimental kind of jobs and really start transferring what is typically these like refinery jobs and working class kind of construction jobs and move those into clean technology. Did that answer your question, Solomon?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Tina, go ahead.
I am so excited. This is my passion. So this promoting clean technology is my passion, and living in harmony with nature and all that good stuff, taking care of each other. But this conversation is, I'm so glad that Brett and Julie and Gabby, that you brought it to the Clean Air Coalition. I think this is an awesome, discussion for this audience. So a question for Mark, the stage that you're at, and by the way, I think it would be really cool to schedule a field trip from anybody from the coalition who wants to go. I'm in. So that could be a conversation that we follow up on with this group. Where are you at with your process as far as, so from what I hear, it sounds like the next step is to get funding in order to build a little bit bigger facility that maybe be located in Antioch. And you're in the research and testing phase, correct? Like early phases of research and development?
That's exactly right. If you were to come, well, when you come by our site, you'll see that it is a scrappy looking startup with a bunch of, tools and equipment and Home Depot and Amazon boxes stuff. It looks like that. So this is R&D. And then in terms of our plan for what we're doing, we have applied, tomorrow is the deadline for an application where we're going to apply for funding to build R&D scale projects that are in Antioch. We also have an application that's going to be submitted with another partner for that's closer to Stockton, but it's the same essential thing. But we focused on this region because it has a lot of, I think, there's a lot of reasons why it makes sense to do these small scale pilots here and let California and the residents of California and the government of California sort of get the benefits of learning about this stuff here now, because California does often try to lead the way globally on a lot of these things, and we just feel like there's a synergy there, and we want to keep the benefits close now if we can.
So as far as sustainability goes, for me, the end use is really important. I've been involved in some solid oxide fuel cell projects and hydrogen. And so in Antioch, are there any potential end users for CO2? So Mark, would this be stored for now in tanks?
I think this might be more of an offline question because we're getting into some specifics, and I know we have another presentation. I do want to share one comment that's in the chat. about the Latino community has limited access to information about clean energy, despite its impact on air quality and health. At La Clinica, we consider this a crucial issue. We do too at the Clean Air Coalition. If you have resources in Spanish about clean energy, Edith would appreciate them being shared so that she can share them with the community too.
Thank you. So Tina, I'll follow up separately on your end use. It's a great point. And Eliana, I will follow up in the chat with response to the comment, but thank you for raising both of those.
Thank you so much. Yes, and if you still have questions, you can add them. You can add them in the chat. If Mark, Brett, Gabby want to respond to them there. Thank you so much for your presentation. Sorry for speeding everyone through. We have another one. So now we are going to hear from our ECHA partners and LBNL, the Bay Point Project. And this will be featuring Solomon, Sarah, and Max. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Leanna. So we'll go from Lawrence Livermore to Lawrence Berkeley. But we have a presentation from Max Way, who will be talking about the project in Bay Point, which is a collaborative project with ECHA member organizations. And we've been very fortunate to have Sarah Romano also consulting as our consultant on behalf of ECHA, helping us with sort of mediating the conversation between, community-based organizations and the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab team. So she will also be able to chime in. But I think so the project is now in its implementation phase. We're making some good progress. The 4 organizations that are involved are Loaves and Fishes of Contra Costa, PWC, People Who Care in Pittsburgh. Let's see. Always seem to be blanking out on names of other organizations. Sarah, can you help chime
did
in?
you get Monument Impact?
Monument Impact.
Richmond Community
Okay.
Foundation.
Yeah, and then what was the 4th one?
Richmond Community Foundation.
Spark Point.
Spark Point.
Costa.
Right. Yeah.
So those are the 4 member partner organizations working with affiliated with ECHA because they're ECHA members, and LBNL, Jing Jing has been our principal contact person, but she's out of the country, and so in her place we've got Max Way, who will be able to talk about the scope of work and maybe on the technical side of the project too, because he knows that much more than I do. So before we do that, Sarah, do you want to add anything? You want to add anything before Max?
At this point, no. Yeah, happy to
no?
hand it over
Okay.
to Max for an overview.
Okay.
Thanks,
Okay.
Solomon.
Great. You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction, Solomon, and thanks for the opportunity to share today. I really appreciated the last presentation, so thank you, Mark, for sharing on that. So I just wanted to describe our project with 2 purposes. One, to describe what the project is and what the scope and objectives are. But secondly, how it could potentially tie into air quality considerations, since air quality is not necessarily the focus of this demonstration project, but definitely I'd like to leave some room and time for that. So just by way of preface, the project is trying to advance, again, a technology which is fairly mature in a sense, but not really fully implemented broadly, which is what is called prefabricated modular construction. So the way we build homes today is really kind of an old technology. It can be very slow, time consuming. There's a lot of custom work, especially if you're building like a stick-built home, if you just think about seeing a frame go up. So, there's always been this vision to try to make that much more industrialized. That is to say, to try to do as much construction offsite as is possible. And that could range from just making some walls, modular walls, for example, offsite, to the whole building if it's like an ADU. So it's really an effort to try to show more affordability in the space. And it's one of about 4 projects that was funded by the California Energy Commission about a year ago. So we're one of about 4. Now, unfortunately, I think one of them has gone out of business or maybe facing business difficulties. So, you know, it's a very tough space, as you may know, with high interest rates and so on. But with that introduction, I'll just jump in, and I'll try to keep it to about 10 minutes and with room for questions. So apologize for the denseness of the slides also. This is just really trying to cram a lot of information into one slide. But so the project is called Upscaling Grid-Friendly, Resilient, Affordable, and Efficient Modular Housing, or UPGRADE for short. It's about a 4-year project. And by industrialized construction, if you're not familiar with it, it could be things like building blocks such as similar to Lego that your kids may play with, to, as I mentioned, building an entire unit offsite and then just kind of connecting them together on site. And the whole purpose of it is to try to reduce costs by speeding up the construction time and also by being more efficient with the material. So hopefully reducing the amount of waste in material. So this on the right is just showing that it can reduce the project time significantly and also reduce the cost by substantial amount. And so the specific objectives of this project are to demonstrate 3 lower cost, I wouldn't say that they're low cost, but lower cost prefab townhomes, which are exceeding current energy efficiency standards and with greater resilience features, and I'll describe that in a moment. And they're part of a project that exists at Bay Point that Habitat for Humanity is building. So it's going to be 3 out of that 30 unit development. And there are specific objectives here, which is to develop better modeling capability for total manufacturing and construction costs, but also to try to better socialize and promote these types of technologies, both within the community and also within kind of providers. So that could be from community college classes to local contractors. And also we're doing some community-wide deployment and surveys. So that would be towards the end of the project. And we're partnering with a startup, which is based in Oakland, Mighty Buildings, and they employ 3D printed wall assemblies. Habitat for Humanity is the builder, ECA, led by Solomon. And yeah, the funding's shown here. And I'll just advance this now. So this is just a flow chart, and it's just highlighting that there are several tasks for the 3 or 4 year project, but one of the pillars of the project is to try to obtain community inputs through community outreach, market surveys, and so forth, to try to inform the types of issues that people may have, especially low-income and disadvantaged areas, in terms of the air quality that they face or their energy bills or the noise, you know. So just trying to get some better sense of difficulties that people face. And certainly we know a lot already, but this is more place-based. But secondly, also to try to understand what attitudes or impressions people may have of these types of technologies. So what we hear is that people don't like this sort of thing because, you know, they don't want something which is like just out of a box. They want something which is, you know, built traditionally. So, you know, just trying to understand some of those attitudes as well. So I'm not going to go over each of these, but it basically is a full design, construction, and then we're also going to be collecting data to validate some of the performance of the townhomes. And this slide, I'll just share very quickly just the partners and their roles. So another partner is UC Berkeley for the cool room design. So in terms of the innovations, there's definitely going to be more offsite automation and integration of the 3D printed walls. So this is just trying to show that it'll be more of a batch or assembly line approach. So more scalable, more manufacturable is one intent, more integration of features such as windows and doors. That's the intent of this one. And then in the right, by what I mean by advanced resilience, it's really geared towards heat resilience to extreme heat, but it could also be towards extreme poor, very high air pollution events. But the idea is to have or demonstrate the capability of a cool room or a safe area. So during an extreme heat wave or periods where the electricity grid is under great stress, you can shift the operations of your home to very low power mode, from say, 3 tons of air conditioning to say half a ton of air conditioning or even much less. And you can couple that with kind of an islanded PV and small battery storage to ride out an extreme event for extreme heat if there were a power outage, for example. And that could certainly be coupled with ideas to provide clean air or low-cost air filtration as well. And there are many different ways to implement this. So we're designing that. Okay, so now I'm just going to step back for a moment and just consider the landscape of homes. So there are new homes and there are existing homes, and acute and chronic issues. So extreme heat. Yeah.
Max, we have about 3 more minutes.
Yeah. Okay. And so I just wanted to highlight that there's a difference, sort of like a 2x2 matrix here between chronic and acute issues, and that there are many more existing buildings than new buildings. So certainly we can think about daily indoor air quality assurance. And so if you click on this link, it's just highlighting the potential for DIY low-cost air filters. And if you are thinking about, acute or infrequent high pollution or wildfire events, this is something that we will definitely factor into our cool room design for this project. We're also doing a separate project in Oakland for existing buildings with a cool room design, and we can also think more about that. And so on this slide, I'm not going to have time to cover all this, but just to mention that there's a lot of related work at Berkeley National Lab on air quality, led by the Indoor Air Quality Group and Brett Singer. And there's also potential for future work. For example, there's a lot of interest in better quantification of indoor environmental conditions or air quality, so-called non-energy impact quantification, and extending the cool room, as I mentioned, to a clean air room, potentially in existing buildings. And then the last one is just a technology concept, which is to try to provide more low-cost off-grid PV and low-cost end uses, such as LEDs, ceiling fans, and air filters, which could all be DC powered. And so that could be much lower cost, potentially very high energy efficiency, and much easier to install. And that could be potential demonstration projects. So yeah, that's all. I'll just skip the last one. And I guess I don't have an ending slide with my contact information, but there it is. Yeah. So yeah, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Max. We have 2 minutes for questions. If anyone would like to ask one. Yes, I see a hand. Go ahead, Lou.
Real quick, same thing. Real quick questions. Possible to visit one of your building construction sites, kind of a thing?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then the other one, for the indoor air quality, are you thinking of using electric appliances such as water heaters and stoves?
Yes, it would definitely be an all-electric home for this new project, the project upgrade that I just described. In terms of the site, I don't have a map, but it is in Bay Point. It's about maybe 10 minutes away from Antioch, if you're in Antioch. I believe it's an unincorporated area, but I think many of you may be familiar with the Habitat for Humanity business model. So it's sort of a sweat equity model. So you are more than welcome to volunteer. It's going to be a little bit different though, because it's got this new technology. So we do have to work through the train the trainer sort of thing, at least to the extent that the wall assemblies are totally new. But yeah, definitely welcome. It's unclear of the exact timeline because things keep getting pushed out, as you might understand. But yeah, we can definitely keep this group informed, or maybe through Solomon.
Life is life, and no worries. And sincerely, thank you very much.
Thank you. And
Tina, go ahead.
yeah. You are muted, Tina.
I'm so glad I came to this meeting today. This is equally part of my passion is building sustainable homes, and you know, the work that the Richmond Community Foundation is doing on the microgrids and redeveloping homes is amazing. So this is awesome. How can we as a coalition support this work? Is my question. And one way that I can think of is that we can help distribute any kind of surveys, community engagement. That's really what this coalition is all about, is having channels to be able to bring information and get feedback from the community. So that's what we're here for. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for bringing that up. You mentioned that, and I was thinking the same thing, just the outreach, the community inputs. So I don't think I have a separate slide for this, but we are planning surveys, you know, and those can be deployed in different ways. We're planning community meetings, hopefully leveraging existing community meetings. We're planning a workshop with stakeholders, which could be community college instructors, potentially contractors, housing authorities. So all that is in the works, but we would absolutely appreciate any support or outreach or, you know, distributing surveys or, yeah, any of that.
Max, could I just say, Tina, Sarah and I would be happy to talk to you about, you know, getting you involved through the coalition to support the activities that Max just talked about, the focus groups, the community meetings, and so forth. We're working with these 4 organizations that are partners, ECHA partners too. So they would definitely want to use and leverage the power of the coalition and the connections that it has. So yeah.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions? Oh, go ahead.
Who are you saying go ahead to?
I think it was you. Go ahead.
Me?
Yeah, were you gonna say
done.
something?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Okay. Does anyone have any final comments? Thank you so much to everyone who came and presented today. These presentations were super interesting, and I'm really glad we got to start these conversations. Similar to what Tina said, if you would like stakeholder engagement or, you know, these connections to different community organizations, please utilize the Clean Air Coalition. I know we've been able to introduce Gabby and your group to some coalition members as well. Mark, Solomon, Sarah, same for you. We are just so grateful to have all of you here with us today. If anybody has an update that they would like to share, 20 seconds or less, please. Oh, wrong screen. Otherwise, let me see 1 second. Okay. Okay, here we go. All right, so thank you everyone for coming. I have a video tutorial of how to add the coalition Google group as a Google contact. If anyone would like to hang back to see that, as always, you all are encouraged to email the whole Clean Air Coalition. I just added the email to the chat. So if you ever have anything you'd like to share with the group, please email this address. Also, I will share things as well, but I especially love when people use the Google group. Thank you again, Mark, Max, Gabby, Brett. If you want to share your information, or if you have any other information you'd like to share, go ahead and send it to me and we can share it with the rest of the coalition. Our next meeting is going to be on January 9th at 1 p.m. Same channel, same time. And hopefully we will have a speaker from BACMed at our next meeting to talk about AB 617. So we are hopeful for that and excited. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good rest of your year. And if you want to hang on to see this demonstration, go ahead. Otherwise, you are all good to go. Thank you.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays. Oh, Julie, that's
Thank you so
awesome.
much, everyone.
Yeah, thanks so much. Great meeting today.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.